Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Top Up Consultants webinar on Yardi and Spreadsheet Server. Before we start with the demonstration of Spreadsheet Server, I'm just going to spend just a minute or two just going through a little bit about Top Up Consultants and who we are, and then, like I say, we'll progress into the demo. So, our foundations are in real estate, accounting, and technology. So we firmly believe that we are real estate, accounting, and technology. A little bit about Top Up Consultants today. Professional services, so we've implemented real estate software solutions in over 15 countries around the world. As an organisation, we're over 40 team members strong and continue to grow. We have 3 products which we develop ourselves, which are now deployed in over 3 continents around the world. We offer a global support service, which currently facilitates 13 countries over 5 time zones. And in terms of assets that we support, it's over 190 billion. Technologies, unparalleled experience in technologies. We're partnered with some of the largest real estate software providers in the world. And custom development, we provide the gap between those solutions and your requirements. A few of the clients here that we work with on a day-to-day basis. Some of those maybe joining the webinar today. Some of those, many of these are also Spreadsheet Server users themselves. And we're very proud to say that we're part of the Yardi Independent Consultants Network. Now, the product we're showing you today is Spreadsheet Server, which is manufactured by a company called Global Software Incorporated. They're one of our closest partners who we work with on a day-to-day basis. Few facts around Global. They have a huge user base, as you can see, around 500,000 users. They operate in over 120 countries. They have a partner network of around 420 partners. And as you can see, they have support offices in North America, in Europe, and in APAC as well. And they offer a full follow-the-sun support. So if you was to purchase Spreadsheet Server, the first line support you come to would be Top Up Consultants. If we were closed and you wanted to then continue your support, you would then go on to Global, and that would be they would have full follow-the-sun support. A few of Global's customers, as you can see here, some quite large organisations, since a few real estate companies there as well, and a few testimonials from Global's clients as well. But basically, the whole point that we're trying to get across here is that, as you can see, we're equity industrial partners. They save more than 300 hours in 1 year by automating the reports with Spreadsheet Server, and that really is the case. We see that over and over again with all our clients who we implement this solution with. It's a quick and easy solution. Getting back to the reality of Excel, Excel is still a core reporting tool for us all. We all have very sophisticated ERP solutions. We all have very sophisticated reporting technologies. But ultimately, we still like to play around in Excel, and that's a key for a lot of our reporting. As you can see here, 1 billion users in Excel. 80% of the time spent outside of ERP in Excel is by executives. So, rather than having that export your figures from your ERP solutions and remanipulate them, Spreadsheet Server gives you the ability to have that in one place. And the journey is you start in Excel and you stay in Excel, as you can see here. So there's no copying and pasting data. You have drill down capabilities, etc. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the actual demonstration itself. If anybody has any questions at any time, please feel free to pop a question into the chat window, and then we'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Okay, so I'm just going to share my desktop now. Okay, so hopefully you can all see now the Excel spreadsheet I have in front of me. At the top of the Excel ribbon, I have a new toolbar here called Spreadsheet Server, and this is where all the functions and widgets of Spreadsheet Server all sit. But to start with, what we'll do is we'll talk about, just give you an example, should I say, of the power of Spreadsheet Server here. So I have an income statement. Hopefully this is something that's fairly familiar with most people. And I have a set of parameters at the top here. So I have property, I have a book, I have a year, and I have a period. Now, if I change this period from period 7, let's say period 5, if you focus on these numbers down here at the bottom, what you'll see is they'll change. So what's happened there is Spreadsheet Server's gone away to the database, it's retrieved the information back for period 5 and it's brought it back to the spreadsheet for me. So again, no running a report, no exporting that information out, it's directly in my spreadsheet. Now, That's all nice, and for those who are technically minded in the audience, you'll know that that's achievable using something called an ODBC connection. However, Spreadsheet Server then gives you that extra layer of sophistication. So what we can do here is I can then drill down into that particular figure, and it will then open up a separate window for me and give me more information about that particular number. Now this window is very useful because it allows me to sort information, it allows me to group it up based on the criteria that I'm interested in. It also allows me to export things out to another spreadsheet. But the drilling down of information doesn't stop there. We can continue to drill down. So let's say, for instance, I'm interested in this 83,000 number at the top here. I can highlight my particular row, I can select ad hoc drill down, and I can select my Yardi journals there. You can see it also supports MRI and a number of other ERP solutions as well. I can then drill down into that particular number, and that takes me down into the detail. So what we're basically doing here is we're going from a very high level GL sum number through to our individual journal records, and then we can keep drilling down as much as we want to, all the way down to the individual subledgers and transactions. So an example of you posted a charge and you want to see what that charge relates to, or you want to see when the money was receipted for a particular charge. You can interrogate that number by drilling down. And all of these columns you can see here, they are tailored during your implementation. So you may want to see the tenant name or the supplier name here, or the date of the invoice, or what the invoice type was. We can include all those in this drill down type. Now, it doesn't stop there, so we can drill down in other ways as well. So we've just seen this drill down to our pop-up window, but we can drill down to other spreadsheets. And we can change that default action as well if we want to. But just for now, I'll select drill down, and I'll say worksheet, and I'll say results. And that will then create another spreadsheet for me and automatically open it. And I can now see that spreadsheet here. It comes with pre-sorting at the top and pre-filtering, so I can filter that as I want to. It always includes a link as well, which takes us back to the original cell which we drilled down from. Okay. So, as you can see here, we also have two columns, actuals and budget. So, Spreadsheet Server also supports using this for budgets within Yardi as well as actuals. And it doesn't just have to be limited to Yardi. It can also be hooked up to other systems. So if you have your budgets perhaps in Argus, we can pull your budgets from Argus as well as putting your actuals through from Yardi. Or should you have another third-party GL system, we can use your GL from another system. Okay. You can see I have a variance here. So I have a variance which is a simple Excel formula, which is C minus D. Now I can just highlight the two columns that I'm interested in, click drill down again, and what will happen for me is that Spreadsheet Server will automatically generate a variance for me as well, so that I can then see that variance automatically. One more drill down feature before I move on is that we don't just have the ability to drill down to a window and another spreadsheet, I can actually drill down on screen as well. So I can click on this little button at the top here called Expand GL Row. That will then push the information out for me. And then what you can see is that the information has now been displayed in drill down format underneath my current figure. Now this account numbers here where it says account number and the account number, this would actually pull through your actual account description. As you can imagine, this is just a demonstration database, so we don't have anything too sophisticated in terms of account names and things like that. This works as well if I change my period as we did before, so change that to period 6, the numbers will refresh automatically. So you're always staying up to date with your data. So I'm going to collapse that data now, back up. Now, one of the nice things as well about Spreadsheet Server is that it supports the use of wildcards. And what we mean by wildcards is that if I just unhide this little section at the side here, this is my parameter for my account. So for my base rent, or income excluding base rent, this is my account numbers that are from Yardi. And as you can see here, I'm using a 4-star. Now the star is the wildcard, and what it's basically saying to me is, give me all the accounts in my general ledger that begin, or my chart of accounts, sorry, which begin with the number 4. And this one after it means just exclude that particular account number. And the reason we're excluding that is because we are looking it up there. Now you don't have to worry. You don't have to remember all your individual account numbers to use this product. There is a wizard which I'll show you in a second, which lets you look up those account numbers and your properties and your property lists and everything else as well. Okay. So, very common question during a demonstration I get asked is, Dean, that looks brilliant. I really like that functionality, but how easy is it for me to build this report? How hard is it for me for a normal user to develop a report like this? do I have to have a big development team? Is it going to cost me days and days and days of time? The answer to that is no. It's very, very simple. So I'm going to open up a brand new spreadsheet here, and then I'm going to click on my Build a Template icon at the top here. This will then launch a wizard, and it gives us our wizard which we can build our template from. So at the start, we have which worksheet do we want our data to go onto. So we're on worksheet 4. What's our balance type? So remember I said that we could use actuals and budgets. So if you want to use budgets, you simply put a B in there, or if you have your budgets named in different scenarios, like you do sometimes in Argus, you can actually put the scenario name in there or the budget name. Then we have the year in which we're querying. So in this case, my data is quite old, so I'm going to say 2017. Then we have our format. So our format's very important. So our format is how do we our data? Do we want to see it on a PER, which is a period basis, a QTR, which is a quarter basis. DQTR is basically for a dynamic quarter, so you can define your own quarter dates. YTD is year to date, LTD is life to date, and range. So you can see it, for instance, I want to see from period 1 to period 7, for instance, you can have a range. In this example, I'm going to say QTR for quarter. Obviously, it's not 5 quarters in a year, so I'm going to say quarter 1. Over on the right-hand side, we have some information about where we want our data to go on our sheet. So we're going to start it in column A, row 1. This means we're going to use our Yardi definition, and just whether we want to clear the worksheet before we insert any data on there. Then we get to pick our criteria. So which book am I interested in, my cash or my accrual book? Or I'm sure you guys have a number of different books as well. Or I can leave it as star, which is the wild card. So it means I want both. Property list, property or list, should I say. Which properties do I want to see? Do I want to see a property? Do I want to see a list? So I'm going to know, I know in my case, my lists will start with a full stop in this example. So I'm going to say my property list is 1190. Then our accounts. So we have a look up here for our accounts. Now I want I know for instance all my income, it begins with a 4. So I want to look at all my 4 accounts. So I'd say 4 star. But if I wanted a range, for instance, between say 4100 and 4300, I could just use this range option here to look between one and the other. Then it's how we want to see our data. Do you want to see it on a row basis or a column basis? Now in that last scenario I showed you, our account was on a row basis and our property in our book was on a column basis. And we can do that just by clicking on this. Okay, I'm going to click Insert on the page. And while it calculates, it will then drop it onto the page for me. There we go. And that's now completed that. So for quarter 1, for 2017, for both my books, for my account numbers, for this property list, this is my amount. I can drill down into that information. Excuse me. And that then brings it up for me. Now, this is nice. Okay, that's fine. So I want to look at quarter 2 now. So how do I do that? So I go to my quarter, hit quarter 2, numbers will refresh. But I want to see them side by side. I want to do a quarterly comparison report. I want to know what's going on from quarter to quarter. How do I do that? As it's Excel and everything is formula driven, so if I click in here, what you'll see is all the cells that are rated to this particular GXL formula. It's nice and easy, especially for those Excel experts in the audience. So I just copy, paste it across my next 3 columns, and change my quarters, and you'll see very easily there you have a quarterly comparison for this year for this particular properties. Now, these parameters you see at the top here don't have to stay here. Again, as it's Excel, you can just link the formulas to different cells on different sheets. And a lot of the clients that we have that use this, they tend to have one control sheet at the front of their workbooks, which contain all the parameters, and then the subsequent sheets will be used for the reports themselves. Likewise, for the rows, I can just copy the row and paste it down. And I can just change my account numbers here. So I can say, okay, my 5 accounts. It calculates, there we go. And my 6 accounts. Okay. So as you see, while it's calculating, it says pending there. Fantastic. So that's gone away, that's pulled my information back, and it's all available for me there. Now, when I said about we don't have to worry about looking up those values, or thinking about those values, we can look them up by clicking on any of the cells that relate to it. So property or list here. If I click on locate segment, what that'll do for me, that'll automatically take me back to the list of properties that I have. They're all searchable and everything else. Now, if I select another property, that 1001, for example. What that will do, excuse me, is that will add it into the cell for me and inside square brackets. And square brackets are there to allow us to add multiple things. So anything you want to do multiples of, we just add a square bracket with a comma separated. Okay, likewise for accounts as well. Now it has one more ability as well. So we have something called segment lists. So segment lists are used to define your own list of accounts, for instance. So I have an example here, top up operating. Now, top-up operating accounts are all my accounts are beginning with 6.2 and all my accounts are beginning with 6.9. And you can build up your own groups of accounts and then give them a name, like example top-up operating. If I double-click on that and insert that into the segment, while that recalculates for a second, that's now added that in. You can see up here in the formula bar, it's done the name top-up operating. So rather than using individual account numbers, you can give groups of accounts their own individual names and represent them on your spreadsheets as well. And that works the same for properties and accounts and books and any other criteria you want. And talking about any other criteria, I'm here also have attribution around your buildings, around your owners, in your Yardi system, even around units. So what we can do as well is we can add that attribution as what we call as a segment. So what I mean by segment is the 3 criteria we have here in account segments, we can then add those additional attribution. So let's say, for instance, you had an attribute of a property manager or an asset manager. You can then run your GL queries based upon the asset manager or based upon the property manager or based upon the property type or the classification. So it adds an additional layer of information which you can interrogate your data by. Okay. Going back to the point that it's Excel. Now, we have an example here of a property comparison report. Now, this isn't too sophisticated, and what I mean by what the main point of that I mean is that we have the spreadsheet server magic here, but everything else is just standard Excel charting. So I can change my year from 2017 to 2016. Numbers are all fresh, and then Excel will do all the work for me by changing all the visualization for me. So it turns into quite a nice KPI-driven report where we have our data refreshed automatically for us there. Again, all this information is drillable. So any cell you're interested in, you can drill down on those particular information within that. So it turns a very basic set of numbers into a nice, KPI-driven visualization with the ability to interact with that data as well. Okay. So that was what we call the GL segment of Spreadsheet Server. So that out of the can works with Yardi without any problems. Typically, the installation of up to 10 people, we can come in, get it set up, get it installed, and working within 1 day. So it's very, very quick to implement as well. The next thing I'm going to move on to is something called the Query Exchange. Now, I won't go into too much detail about the actual query designer itself, but basically the Query Exchange allows you to interrogate the other parts of your databases. So you may want to use it for rent rolls, tenancy schedules, age debtors, occupancy reporting, property KPIs. You can use it for development. You can use it for payables. So basically, any area outside of GL, you can use this particular this tool for. Give you an example of this. So this is an example of one of these reports. So I have a report, an occupancy report, which gives me the property, the floor, the occupied square foot, the vacant square foot, and the occupancy percentage. I have a parameter here that I can select a property on. So very much like we had before, we can select the individual property that we're using. Again, we can use wildcards. And in this case, it won't automatically refresh, so I have to generate report button. This will then go away, find my data from my database, and present that to me. Now we can present it in 2 ways. So we could have perhaps a parameter there that shows us all the properties that are greater than, say, 30% occupied, 50% occupied, and then we could have a drill down, or we have this individual set of data, as you can see here, in terms of the reports. So this is one example of a non-GL query which we've developed. Now, for basic queries such as this report, I would say an end user can develop these, but when you're going into more complex reports such as rent rolls, or you're looking to do some real detailed sort of property exposure reports, etc., I would recommend that you need to use someone with a good level of technical ability. Now, if you don't have anyone internally that does that, worry, that's something that we do for our clients all day during the implementation. And to give you an idea, typically during an implementation, during a training session, we can knock out between 3 to 5, polished reports which you can then go away and use, depending on the complexity of those reports, of course. Now we have two ways of running a query as well. So we have this way here as well, but we also have this option here called query. Now this gives a real quick snapshot of some information that you may be asked a lot, but you not necessarily want a report for. So you may be asked, oh, what's our occupancy percentage for this particular building or that particular building? Or what's our exposure to this tenant? So this is a nice quick way, simple off the toolbar. You select your property, hit execute, it fires off in the property window, and you have the same information you have here, just in a pop-up window. So you don't have to have that spreadsheet functionality for you. Then I have one more example here of combining two pieces of functionality. So we're using our GL functionality, our pre-built out-of-the-can functionality, along with our query designer functionality. And what we have here is basically a report based upon an account tree in Yardi. So I select my account tree that I'm interested in. Now these are obviously the standard account trees that we have in Yardi. I'm sure you guys have all got your own as well. They'll be obviously fully accessible. So I select my Yardi, I'm going to set balance sheet in this case, and I'm going to hit drill down. Now, sorry, not drill down, excuse me, generate reports. Now, these parameters at the top here are the same parameters we had within our GL report, but what it's done is we don't have to factor in what account numbers we have to do, how it's going to total, how to make it look and feel. What we've got here is a pre-built tool which then pulls through the Yardi account trees for us and shows us our totals accordingly. And again, here we can change our period. Sometimes it's Q2 here and Q3, and you can see the numbers are all refreshing automatically for us. So a nice combination there of using the query exchange functionality and the GL functionality that's built within. Okay, so the last part of Spreadsheet Server we're going to talk about today is something called Distribution Manager. And the reason we need Distribution Manager is for two reasons. First of all, if I save my spreadsheet somewhere and my colleague Richard opens it and he doesn't have Spreadsheet Server, he's going to see in these cells of the custom GXL formula, so the Spreadsheet Server formula, he's going to see lots of NAs in those cells because he doesn't have the Spreadsheet Server toolbar. So basically, the distribution toolbar allows you to output the spreadsheets in a generic format which everyone can be read, and it just takes away that drill down interactive functionality. It also allows us to output reporting packs. So you may want to output things like PDF reports or Excel reports, which you use for distribution purposes. So Distribution Manager, I'll just show you very quickly. I'll go to maintain specs. So this is a toolbar. This is a tool which allows us to set up a profile for outputting our information. So we have a couple of options. We can email it, we can file save it, and we can print it. And then we can output it to a number of different formats as well. So we can output it as Excel spreadsheet in 3 different ways, macro enabled, non-macro enabled, CSV, HTML, PDF, and Word. The Word part is actually very cool. It allows you to embed tokens inside your Word documents, and then the figures will feed through to those individual tokens. That's not available in this webinar today, but if anyone wants to see that, please let me know, and I'll do a follow-on demonstration with that. Okay, so you select what you want to, how you want to save your file. Let's say PDF in this case. You name it something. So let's just say output 240518, and then select the folder in where you'd like to output it. So let's say demo output. Then we have the options before we're outputting our data to modify our cells. So let's say, for instance, my income statement, I want to modify the building or the period or the year before I output my information. I put the cell reference in here and I put the value in which I want to output. Then we specify the worksheets in what we want to output. So again, example is income statement. And we also have the options here to say hide 0 lines. So if you have trial balance, for instance, you only want to see the movement, you can say hide 0 lines and it will hide all the 0 lines, so you haven't got to look through accounts with no movement. You have the option to protect it as well. So if you're outputting a worksheet and you want to protect that so no one can edit it, you can tick the protection box. Now down at the bottom here, we have convert formulas to values. So this gives us the option to say, if we're outputting in Excel, what formulas do we want to output? Do we want to convert the global formulas only, which means it will just take away that GXL, that drill down, that interactive functionality? All formulas, so it will convert absolutely everything to values. Nothing, don't do anything at all. A few more options here. Recalculate before we sending it. So where I am hitting that generate report button, where I'm changing my values and refreshing my data, do that before we output it. Then we just have some more options here about zipping a destination, etc. Now I have 4 pre-built options here already in my distribution, and basically what I've done here, I'll just show you maintain specs, is I'm outputting a PDF of the income statement for 4 different properties basically up here. To make this work, all I have to do is hit distribute. That will then run through, and it will output my 4 distribution statements here. So what we have is open these up. So we have an income statement for each individual property that I've output. And this is very useful for outputting large reporting packs. I'm sure we all have, large month-end outputs that we have to produce. So rather than having, 20 different workbooks with 20 different properties or 20 different portfolios worth of data, we can just have one with parameters within the spreadsheet that goes through and output that information. Okay. So that's the spreadsheet server demonstration complete. I have one more thing to go over with you guys, and that is the different types of licensing that we have from the Spreadsheet Server. Okay, so Spreadsheet Server comes in 3 different license types. It comes with as a Platinum, which contains all the functionality you saw today, including something called the Query Designer or Query Exchange, and that gives you the ability to build the queries from the other parts of Yardi, so things like your tenancy schedules, rent rolls, etc. Now, when you buy a Spreadsheet Server, you have to buy 1 Platinum. The tier underneath that is a Gold license. So the Gold license allows you to do everything else except for building those queries outside of the GL. Then we have the limited license. So the limited license only gives you the basic functionality of interacting with the spreadsheet. So where you saw my income statement, when I was interacting with that income statement, that's the functionality. That's the functionality you get with a limited license. Okay. Right. So I think what we need to do now is move on to any questions that we've been asked. So I'll just start having a look at those. So just 1 second while they're coming through. So costs, license costs, they will be provided after this webinar. So everyone who attended will get an email with the information about Spreadsheet Server and the license costs. Okay. Let's have a look through here. Okay, where is the data stored? So the data will be stored in your Yardi database. So those of you who have the standard Yardi hosting in the Yardi scenario, what you have to do is you have to have a daily download of your database, and that will be, we connect to that daily download of your Yardi database. So we can set that up for you so it automatically downloads from Yardi every single day. We also have a plugin for the Yardi database, which allows us to refresh your data every 30 minutes. So your data can be up to 30 minutes old. How often is data download? Okay, as I just mentioned, a daily download, we can do it every 30 minutes. From where can we download the Excel Spreadsheet Server add-in? So that is something that's obviously only provided through us and Global Software. So the next one is, what is the cost of the license in the add-in? Okay, so as mentioned, that will be provided after this webinar to everyone attended. Can it work across multiple ERPs? Absolutely, it can work across multiple ERPs. So yes, that is absolutely possible. As mentioned, we use it across MRI, Yardi, Argus, but it's also heavily used in Oracle, SAP. You can also use Salesforce as well. One-time build and reuse model, or every time we have to build to view data. No, one-time build, and you can reuse. Then you can reuse it many times. That's the real benefit of this system, because the once you've got your spreadsheet set up, you can just literally change your parameters and it will refresh all the information through. So that's one of the real advantages of Spreadsheet Server. Okay, so before we conclude the webinar, is anyone any further questions at all? Please feel free to put them into the chat window. Okay, doesn't seem to be any further questions. If you do have any questions after this, please feel free to contact either of my colleagues or myself, and we'll be more than happy to discuss any questions you may have with you. So thank you very much for your time today. I hope it's been beneficial for you all, and I hope to speak to you soon. Thank you. Goodbye.